Here are the latest updates on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Stay tuned for critical insights and developments that you won't want to miss. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky emphasized the need for an international consensus on peace negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. In a BBC interview on July 18th, he called for a united global stance on the end state of the conflict, urging Russia to engage in negotiations. Zelensky highlighted diplomacy as key to restoring Ukraine's territorial integrity, suggesting weakening Russia's battlefield position to strengthen Ukraine's negotiating leverage. Ukrainian officials consistently advocate for a negotiated settlement, ensuring Ukraine's sovereignty and security without conceding territory. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is amplifying Russian information operations while positioning himself as a mediator between Russia and Ukraine. On July 18th, Orban published a report on his peacekeeping mission, which included visits to several countries. Despite acknowledging Russia's reluctance for peace, Orban's narrative often aligns with Russian efforts to shift blame onto Ukraine and diminish Western support for Ukraine. He called for the European Union to normalize relations with Russia, supporting Kremlin efforts to project limited Western support and undermining European Union policies against Russian aggression. Orban remains committed to his mission, despite European Union criticism. New UK Defense Secretary John Healey declared on July 19th that Ukraine could use UK-supplied weapons to strike military targets in Russia, reversing previous reports. He stated that UK weapons could be used within international humanitarian law bounds, including striking military sites in Russia. Ukrainian President Zelensky urged the UK to lead in removing limits on Ukraine's use of Western weapons, enabling defense against Russian offensives and airstrikes. The UK's policy on Ukrainian use of Storm Shadow missiles remains unclear, with discussions ongoing about their deployment for defensive purposes. The Kremlin is worried about the long-term implications of veterans returning from the Ukraine war. Reports from a July 2024 meeting reveal concerns about veterans' poor adaptation to civilian life and potential for increased crime. Comparisons were made to post-Soviet Afghan war veterans, noting modern Russian society's detachment from the war. The Kremlin fears disillusioned veterans might form criminal gangs, threatening internal stability. The Time of Heroes program, aimed at supporting veterans, is seen as insufficient. This highlights the Kremlin's lack of foresight on the social consequences of its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The Russian government is considering stricter measures to censor critical voices on social media. Proposed legislation would require social media account owners with over 10,000 subscribers to submit personal identification data to Roskomnadzor, the federal censor. Non-compliance would result in blocked accounts. Roskomnadzor's previous proposals targeted ad-dependent channels, but the new measures aim at all large anonymous channels. Telegram's founder announced displaying registration dates and countries as part of anti-scam efforts, although this aligns with broader censorship trends. These actions reflect ongoing efforts to control the Russian information space and suppress dissent. Russian authorities are pushing for stricter migration laws as ultranationalist rhetoric intensifies. The Russian Investigative Committee proposed measures to regulate migrants and strip naturalized citizens of Russian citizenship if involved in serious crimes. These proposals include biometric registration and mandatory military service for new citizens. Recent violent incidents involving migrants fueled ultranationalist complaints about lenient policies. The Federal Security Service claimed to thwart a terrorist attack by a Tajik citizen, sparking calls for tighter migration controls. The Kremlin struggles to balance ultranationalist demands with the need for migrant labor to address workforce and military shortages. Russian forces made recent advances near Seversk, Toretsk, and Avdiivka amid ongoing offensive operations. They seized Ivano-Darivka and advanced towards Siversk, approximately 8 to 9 kilometers away. In Toretsk, Russian troops moved westward and captured areas in eastern Druzhba and southern Pivnishna. Near Avdiivka, Russian forces took Prorez and advanced in surrounding areas. Despite these gains, frontline changes remain limited. These advances demonstrate continued Russian efforts to capture key locations in Donetsk Oblast, with heavy fighting reported in multiple directions as both sides vie for strategic control.